Welcome to the Trust Factor Radio, bringing you interviews and insights to unlock the power of the subconscious mind to create authority, credibility, and trust. With your host, the Authority Architect, and best-selling author, Neil Howe.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today my guest is Connor Wrenn. Connor is the SEO Manager at Uncommon Logic Digital Marketing, and he helps medium-sized and enterprise organizations optimize their business strategies and tactics for SEO success. Connor and his team help companies systematically improve their websites and search engine ranking to drive greater user engagement and drive more sales. Well, Connor, I am very excited to dive into this. I love talking about SEO, so welcome to the show, Connor Wrenn.
Thank you, Neil. Happy to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, Connor, and Uncommon Logic Digital Marketing.
Sure. It's a little bit about myself. I have been involved in SEO in one way or another for about the last 7 years. I started off by getting involved in it in college through different marketing internships and ended up working in that field full time. Up until this year, I've been working on in-house teams in the real estate field and in the personal finance lead gen field before coming on board to the Uncommon Logic digital marketing agency. Decided to make the jump to agency life because I wanted to get some more exposure with different types of clients in different fields with different SEO needs to really grow my own skill set and to be in a position to share more knowledge in general about digital marketing as we're doing here. I find that there's a little bit more opportunity to do that in this kind of environment. So I'm happy to be here talking to you about it.
Excellent. Well, and you're based in Austin, Texas, is that correct?
That's correct.
But you do business all over the country?
Yes, and we even have some clients outside of the United States as well. So we have a pretty broad-reaching set of clients that we help.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about those clients. What kind of clients are you? You said medium to enterprise-sized businesses. Is that who you deal with mainly?
Correct. We tend to deal with these types of clients specifically because, for one, we are a boutique-style agency. We are extremely high-touch, high-involvement, very hands-on in terms of mining data for insights and strategies that clients need. So in that sense, medium to larger size organizations tend to have the budget to work with an agency that operates on our model. Beyond that, we tend to help clients in a lot of different areas. I don't know if we have any particular specialties. I know that I've worked with clients in the software as a solution space, consulting in various fields, even looking at local businesses that have multiple branches. It really runs the gamut, which is part of what makes the job so exciting.
Definitely. You really get to learn about all these different kinds of businesses, and they all have different needs. But what would you say are some of the main problems that these businesses have and why they come to you?
Sure. At the end of the day, all of our clients come to us because they suspect their digital marketing and SEO specifically could be better, and our job is to help them prove that their hunch is correct. Since my team particularly is focused on SEO, we tend to see clients come to us at a point where they're engaging in an activity, particularly a website relaunch or revamp of some kind, where there's an opportunity to make changes or tweaks to the website that they may not otherwise be able to do easily. When we talk about optimizing for things like page speed, if we want to change the way that the website is structured, which may involve doing some redirecting of old URLs to new URLs, if we want to make sure that design elements are designed correctly the first time rather than fixing them later on. These are all things that can very easily be done in the course of a website relaunch. But when they're not coming to us with that kind of particular activity, they really want to have a better understanding of how their SEO efforts could be doing. We see clients come to us where they have an understanding of maybe some of the best practices. They may even have a tool that does a really good job of helping to automate the implementation of those best practices, but maybe they're not really targeting the right keywords, or they're not understanding how to translate the language that they use to describe their business into a language that search users use to find content relevant to their business. It's the idea of if you get the inputs right, then all of your optimization activities in terms of how you target those keywords will work a lot better in the long run.
So these are businesses that, may have tried to do some of the SEO work themselves, or maybe outsourced it to, an SEO company, but they get to a point where, they know that there's more to be made through SEO, and they need, a bigger SEO company in order to do that. Is that what you're finding?
Correct. They're either looking for a more advanced set of insights, or they're looking for more insights to drive strategic growth of their traffic. To give an example, if you're optimizing your content for terms that are only getting you 10 to 50 searches a month, you may rank well for those terms, but you're not really targeting all of the traffic that you could be targeting. And our goal is to help those organizations understand how they could be expanding their content development, whether it's with their current content or through developing new pages, in order to capture all of the potentially relevant traffic for their organization.
So let's talk about how you figure these kinds of things out. How do you recognize those keywords and where the best traffic is going to come from?
That's a great question. And this is really the question at the heart of doing keyword research. And we mine a variety of data sources for that information. Before we do that, in an effort to understand the client's business, we'll spend a lot of time talking with them before we engage with them, asking them to describe their business to us, ask them if they feel like the language that they're using is congruent with the language that their customers use to find their business. Depending on the answers we get back, we'll try to vet that feedback with some data. We'll look at information from Google Search Console, which is every webmaster's free resource for keyword data. We can get an idea of what content is bringing in traffic currently and using what kind of keywords. From there, we would go about getting information from third-party databases. This would be something like Google AdWords Keyword Planner if you were doing this on a lower budget. We use tools like Ahrefs, SEMrush, and Moz Pro in order to find even more data with some more robust metrics in order to understand if the keywords that are currently bringing in traffic are the most optimal. Do they have the right kind of traffic? Do they have the right kind of intent? Can we get an idea of, based on the query, if someone's interested in buying or not? Or if they're not interested in buying, where are they at in their buyer's journey? And then from there, we would go about mining for data on competitors using a lot of those same tools. We would want to understand what they're ranking for, how well are they ranking for it, to get an idea of some of the content gaps. And that's usually something that clients really like to see. A lot of clients like to know that they could be doing better than their competitors or want to know how they can beat them. So if you can show them a pretty clear content gap where this particular competitor is outranking you for this highly relevant term, you really should go after this. It makes it really easy to get buy-in for developing the content for that.
I love SEO because there is that aspect of competition that goes with it. You know who your competitors are, and you want to outrank them, and it's a bit of a challenge not only for the company owner, but you as an SEO as well. You always want to get those best positions for your clients. So there's that competitive side to it, which I love. Something that you mentioned a minute ago was the language. Talk to me about that, because I know that can be a problem if you are in the business and you speak a certain language. You know what kind of language that business talks, but as a layperson, they may not use that same kind of language to search for your business. How important is that?
It's very important. When we talk to clients especially clients who may have been doing paid media in some way, shape, or form, which we, have plenty of those at Uncommon Logic as well. They're familiar with doing a more audience targeting version of marketing where they can hone in very specifically of, I want this particular I want to target chief marketing officers, for example, for these size companies. And when you know that you're already reaching that audience, you can have a little bit more liberty with how you message and brand yourself. You can use some more of that internal language. And if it's still compelling to your end user, they may still respond in a way that's beneficial to your business. They may choose to attend your webinar or contact your sales team or do something similar. When you're dealing with organic search and the audience is a little bit less clear, you have to really understand how people are finding information in that way. In the way that they know previously. You have to understand what their assumptions are in terms of what language they're going to use. And then you sort of have to back them into the way that you describe it. In terms of saying, we don't just do this kind of service. Like we don't just do digital marketing, for example. We do data-driven, highly strategic digital marketing with this kind of approach. That way you're getting people to understand the what of what you do before you get them to understand the why of what you do. And a lot of businesses using internal language will try to combine the two in a way that makes a lot of sense if you're trying to sell someone later on in their journey, but isn't always the best way to acquire potential new customers.
So that all revolves around the content that's on the page and how you speak to people. So talk to me about how you develop some of that content for your clients.
Sure. We engage in two different types of content reviews, one around existing content, one around developing new content. When we're looking at existing content, we look at a couple of things. We start out by doing keyword research for any of these pieces, as we discussed earlier. Once we have that keyword research in place, we try to get an understanding based on the way that the information could be organized and based on the types of results that come back for each of the keywords we're trying to target. How do we want to organize this information? What is the primary keyword on each page that we want to target in places like the title tag, the meta description, the main header on the page, and of course throughout the body copy as is appropriate. And then what kinds of keywords can we target as subtopics, maybe using subheaders on the page and also using those throughout the body copy. Once we got that information figured out, we start to review the content, or we start to create an outline for a new piece of content with that idea in mind. How are we going to put these keywords into their right places? And then we start to get an idea from reviewing competing ranking content and from the keywords themselves of what kinds of questions and information do we want to put out there. This not only helps with keyword targeting, but it also helps clients to understand what types of content they need to be producing in order to be competitive. Putting the content out itself is just as much of a competition as the regular business operations are. And if you don't have the mindset of setting out to create the best kind of content for a specific topic, you're going to have a hard time winning the rankings race, as it were.
So what's working now as far as content that you put on the page? Are you trying to rank an individual page for just one or two keywords? Or are you talking more about, like you said, a topic where you're really creating a longer piece of content to rank for more keywords?
That's a great question. And as is the answer in SEO, a lot of the time, it really depends. We try to, we understand the best practice now is that Google wants to see really comprehensive content. But sometimes the data doesn't always back up that that's the case. We may find in a specific keyword set of primary and secondary topics that the search results are extremely distinctive. We don't see a lot of, comprehensive content pages overlapping across all of these different keywords in terms of how they rank. So that may be a clue to us that we need to create very targeted content around certain keywords, where others might be more appropriate to combine a bunch of topics into one and create a resource page in that way. There are benefits of targeting multiple topics on a page, especially when we think about the context of answering questions in a way that allows Google to pull them into featured snippets, those little answer boxes that we now see at the top of a lot of search results. And targeting those kinds of question topics within, and targeting several of those within a particular piece of content can improve your chances of earning answer boxes. But beyond that, we really try to let the data tell us, does Google believe that a distinctive piece of content on this keyword is necessary, or can we place this particular topic within the body of another article?
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we've covered keywords and content. Let's talk about some of the stuff that makes the website run faster, some of the technical issues. What problems do you see from a technical standpoint that some of these enterprise businesses might have?
Well, in this day and age, we're always working on page speed with clients. There's almost always room for improvement, and particularly it can take some time to help clients understand why this is important and how they can optimize for it, and why the extra effort to do that is worth it. A lot of the times it revolves around the types of media assets they have on their site. They haven't properly sized or compressed images. And can be a lot of issues with how content is loaded in order on the page. If you were to go run a test through Google's PageSpeed Insights tool, they'll tell you that the order in which certain assets are loaded impacts the overall page load speed, because if the browser has to wait on certain assets to load before it can load other things, it can just take a longer time for a user to see that content. And all of that translates into user engagement metrics. If users can't immediately and quickly see what's on the page and what they're getting, they're more likely to bounce from your site. And those kinds of user engagement metrics are not what Google wants to be seeing in pages if they want to rank highly in search. One of the other things that we see clients doing incorrectly from a page architecture standpoint is figuring out how to use different headers and subheader elements in order to stylize their pages. So they may be using header tags as a shortcut for certain styling elements and certain font styles, and that can negatively impact the way that the topics on the page are set up.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's funny how some just little changes that you wouldn't think would make a difference can make all the difference when it comes to SEO. And really having an eye to figuring those things out is the difference between, one SEO company and another. And obviously, knowing all these things is going to get the best results. Let's talk about backlinks. You talk about having a strong backlink profile. What exactly is that?
So a strong backlink profile in 2018 is, in my opinion, a digital representation of relationships that you build naturally throughout the course of a business. That can be a lot of activities ranging from business development, business partnerships, making sure that the people that you work with in carrying out your mission as an organization are linking to you in a way that is reflective of that partnership. So this could be something like testimonials for customers that you work with and publishing case studies with them. If you partner with certain vendors, tool providers, suppliers in any way, shape, or form, maybe you use people like distributors to get your product out into the world. Find ways for those relationships to manifest themselves online in the form of a link back to your website. There's a lot of PR now that can work very effectively from a link building standpoint in terms of earning coverage for your business if you've got a particularly innovative concept that you can promote. And then beyond that, from a content development standpoint, we try to encourage clients to develop research and insights that are truly distinctive in a way that can earn links naturally as well. It's something that I've seen work well both in in-house roles and for clients that engage in it, is to invest in producing data about user behavior in the industry where they're trying to compete. Those kinds of resources are very easy for anyone from a casual writer to link to who wants to reference a particular statistic, to journalists who are eager for that kind of coverage in writing about various items. As far as how we carry that out for clients, we're we don't have an entire staff of link builders to go out and do things like outreach. So a lot of what we try to do is to help clients understand how they can be using the relationships that they have and the networking resources that they have in order to build those links naturally.
Yeah, getting some good PR is definitely very beneficial, not only because it's something that you can share, but they're generally very good, strong links from well-established authority sites, which can make a big difference to your own website.
Mm-hmm.
Now, talk to me about some of the updates. Now, the recognizable ones that most business owners that have been in business for a while are probably Penguin and Panda, but there's updates all the time with Google. I think the most recent big one was the Medic update. How do you guard against all these different changes that Google's going to implement to make sure that your clients are always going to be staying at the top and not penalized?
That's a really good question. Back in the earlier updates, the ones that you named, Panda and Penguin, that most people are familiar with, the generic advice you could give clients is don't do shady things. Mm-hmm. Those particular updates were very focused on eliminating truly and directly bad behavior on the part of people to game the system. Nowadays, it's a little bit more nuanced than that. When we look at what the potential impact of the Medic update was, as you mentioned, which was the most recent large one that rolled out, it wasn't necessarily clear that they were trying to deliberately punish bad behavior so much as it was that they were making a statement of raising their standards, especially for some of those sites that got affected by the Medic update, which were largely sites about your money or your life. So sites that would give advice about your health or your wealth. Mm-hmm. So what we really try to do now in understanding how future updates may impact clients is we keep on top of the updates to Google's search quality guidelines. To give an example from the Medic update, Google had made significant changes to their search quality guidelines in terms of demonstrating authority and trust. And this was the metric that they used to raise the bar with the Medic update. So when we read that guideline and we see that things like testimonials, having authors of your content that are actually qualified in the field that you're writing about and have certain certifications and a certain reputation, by reading those guidelines, we were able to understand those sort of new standards. And by keeping on top of those standards as they change and relaying them back to clients, we're able to put them in a position where they're already meeting that standard by the time that that standard becomes the new normal.
Well, talking about authority and trust, every business needs to try and generate that authority and trust, and it's no wonder that Google now is really making that a focus for delivering the best results based on those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about some of the misconceptions within the industry, because SEO, was a dirty word for a while, and there's a lot of people that will come in and take your money without really not knowing what they're doing or using best practices. What do you hear about the SEO industry?
So, in addition to that point, I think we see a couple of interesting trends. The first, and probably the one that's most closely tied to the shadier reputation that SEO can have, is the idea that SEO can be a quick fix. And this is a stereotype that is perpetrated largely by people who promise exactly that. Clients get these visions of instant results with minimal to no effort on their part, using a set of best practices that never really changes. And the reality is, aside from a few exceptions, if you somehow come across a client who's doing everything right except for one easy thing that you can switch quickly, SEO takes time to do right and to see results. Just from the perspective of it takes time for you to develop the content that allows Google to see that you are an authoritative resource on a lot of different topics related to the industry in which you provide information or a product or a service. So we really try very hard to level set that expectation of investing with us for the long term in order to see the results that they want to see.
And I'm sure dealing with these medium to enterprise businesses, that they have already discovered that SEO is a long play and understand that it is worth it in the end.
Absolutely. But depending on how those stakeholders are measured within their organization, if they're extremely data centric, a lot of them could be very interested in saying, what is the potential payoff of a specific activity? Like how many more leads could I stand to get if I improve page speed, for example? And it's very, very difficult, if not impossible in some cases, to draw those direct lines between a single activity from a search engine optimization standpoint and a result. In truth, the practice is holistic and the results are holistic as a result. So what we try to do in that case is say, you're investing in gaining traffic in the organic search channel. Let us help you understand through modeling, potential click-through rates, what kind of traffic you could stand to gain if you were working towards this goal of ranking on page 1 or position 1 for this particular set of keywords. And so that way we can give them something to work with, but also help them understand that it's that we're engaging in holistic practices working towards a goal, and it's not this direct line of, I get 5 more leads a month if I can reduce my page load speed by 1 second.
Yeah, definitely. There's some metrics that are hard to translate or to correlate into return on investment, but ultimately companies are looking for leads, they're looking for phone calls, and they're looking for profits on the bottom line. And with an increase of leads and traffic, that certainly can correlate there. Absolutely.
And in that sense, this is where I most enjoy the content development side of what we do, because that is probably one of the things you can tie most closely to potential results, because you can make a really classic marketing argument for it in the sense of you are developing content that is going to meet a customer at a particular touch point in their journey, and it's going to answer a question that they're obviously asking, which we can see from doing keyword research. And the data from that keyword research can back that up nicely to say, you were developing content that was not drawing in relevant traffic, or wasn't drawing in as much relevant traffic as you should be getting. If you refocus your content publishing strategy on these kinds of topics versus where you were previously, you're poised to capture a lot more traffic in a way that can bring in more engaged visitors and visitors that are more likely to convert on the site in order to generate those leads and that revenue that business owners are looking for.
Well, let's talk about some of the results that implementing all this kind of stuff have for your clients. Can you give me an example, Connor, of a client that you've worked with that had a problem? What kind of problems were they having? What solutions were you able to implement, and what did it mean to the business? What was the outcome?
Sure. There's a client that we've worked with in the software as a service sector that had the exact problem I was talking about earlier with not having a content strategy that was optimized for organic search. They were writing a lot of articles that were that illustrated a lot of great thought leadership, very smart insights into the field that they were in, but ultimately they weren't answering questions that people searching in Google were looking for. What we really have done over the course of their engagement, and they've been with us for about 1.5 years now, is getting that content strategy focused on some of the more basic and high-level topics related to the field that they're in terms of answering those questions, providing content that very directly answers those questions, and speaks to people in where they're at rather than using very industry-heavy jargon and that sort of a thing. And at the end of the day, not only has this client found that the content that we've produced is actually driven results in terms of this content is now ranking on page 1 in a couple of months. and it's bringing in traffic as a result. But we're also seeing now that content is starting to bring in leads in terms of asking for a demo of their product or getting in contact with their sales team in order to learn more about what they have to provide. And that lead set is now accounting for anywhere from 5 to 10% of the leads that are being brought in from organic search on a month-over-month basis. And we expect that number to continue to grow in the next couple of months. And it really speaks to the power of developing content that meets people where they are, getting your brand in front of people that you weren't otherwise in front of before. And what we're finding, to our delight, is that this traffic is very interested in the product or service, even if when they're looking for some of that base level information related to their particular journey.
So if somebody is looking for help and they're looking for an SEO company to implement some of these things that you've talked about, Connor, what kind of questions should they be asking that company to make sure that they're dealing with the right one?
Ooh, this is a very good question. Very, very good question. I would start by asking them whether or not what kind of timeline they see getting results in terms of do they believe that this is something that's an instantaneous fix, or do they believe it's a more longer term development thing? And ask them why that's the case. Because it encourages it gets you to see if they're trying to blow smoke, so to speak, or if they're interested in working with you over the long run. And by asking them why they think they can execute on instant results or long-term results, you can get a better feel for how they approach their SEO strategy as a whole. If you wanted to suss out a couple other things in order to determine what kinds of practices they use, asking them, how they approach link building and what their philosophy is to that is a good one. There tend to be a lot of, still kind of gray hat or black hat tactics that exist in that space in terms of paying for links or getting links from less than scrupulous sources that may not be related to the client's business. Understanding some of those tactics can give customers a feeling for the general philosophy in which an SEO firm conducts their services. And what you're really looking for is someone who's going to answer those questions in an informed way, being honest in terms of, hey, how realistic do we think these results are and why do we think that? And getting an understanding of the practices that they use in order to understand how they approach their business as a whole.
Yeah, it's a good response. You've really got to be careful that the company that you choose to work with is using best practices that aren't going to get penalized down the road. So, Connor, this has been really helpful. It's a lot of great information that you've given us today in regards to the content, especially. We talked about some of the technical issues as well as some backlinking too, which are some of the major components of SEO. So if somebody wants to reach out to you and to Uncommon Logic, what is the best way for them to be able to do that?
Well, you can go to our website at uncommonlogic.com. There are some pretty clear calls to action on the homepage in terms of getting in touch with us. If you wanted to reach me directly, you could reach me at connor.wrenn at uncommonlogic.com. And from there, we'd be able to get anyone in touch with some of the people to get that process started in terms of understanding their problem and how we would be best positioned to fix it.
Well, excellent stuff. I'll make sure I have that link in the show notes here. But I've been talking with Connor Wrenn. He's the SEO manager at Uncommon Logic Digital Marketing in Austin, Texas. Connor, thank you very much for being my guest in the Trust Factor Radio today.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Neil.
And to our listening audience, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share, and we'll see you next time on the show.
You've been listening to the Trust Factor Radio with Neil Howe. To learn about the resources mentioned in the show and to listen to past episodes, go to thetrustfactorradio.com. To get a copy of the book, The Trust Factor, go to thetrustfactorbook.com. If you are ready to act now and build your authority, credibility, and trust, schedule a consultation with Neil at theauthorityarchitect.com.